Welcome to Connection Oasis. We're Hope and Rene, two friends sharing our stories, lessons, and laughter.
Everyone who's crossed our path has taught us something about ourselves, and that's what we explore here: connection, growth, and a little humor along the way. We're talking about Renee's chapter, That's My Bag. So, both Renee and I wrote chapters about emotional baggage. We realized that we were working through these chapters. Um, Baggage doesn't always show up in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, we talked about my chapter, Bags, and what it looked like for me to carry my trauma baggage alone, and what started to change when I finally shared it. I knowingly hid mine because I was sure that no one would accept it. But Renee, your experience played out differently. Your chapter, That's My Bag, unfortunately, isn't about hiding baggage. It's about holding on to it, carrying it, and not realizing that you have it, or more importantly, how deeply it affects you. So, Renee, when did you start realizing what you were carrying and that carrying it was actually weighing you down?
Well, as I look back now, it's hilarious to me how oblivious I actually was because it definitely wasn't just one moment. Being that oblivious, it took a few times of hitting my head against a wall to realize this, but because I thought that people with emotional baggage like flaunted it. Like that had been my experience with recognizing it in others. Um, I just thought it was the people starting drama who talked about it constantly. They're always being wronged every time they turn around, and I really that wasn't how I reacted in life. So I didn't think I had that. So, but as I started noticing patterns, that's kind of how I started to begin to maybe question that baggage could look differently than that. And what I realized is that I maybe had just found a different way to carry mine. I didn't talk about it. Um, I just held on to it. And that's kind of how I started realizing that maybe there was more than one way that baggage showed up in someone's life.
Yeah, my husband and I, we talked about our childhoods a lot, especially since you and I have been working on the book. So
Hmm.
his childhood was much more traditional than ours, either of ours.
Yeah.
He grew up in a nuclear family, had younger siblings, church every Sunday. And so he took the position of comparing his childhood to mine. And he decided that since his didn't look as obviously traumatic as mine, that
Yeah.
he didn't have any baggage.
Yes.
And, so after many discussions, I started to notice that sometimes he would tell me a story here or there that had left him with some complicated feelings, but
Mhm.
he never allowed himself to call that, trauma.
Mhm.
So to his mind, if he wasn't victimized, like me, or didn't have a non-traditional upbringing like you, that he should just consider his complicated memories and not trauma.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, though, everybody has differing traumas from their childhood, and I believe that many people don't work through theirs for the same reason that he didn't. And, that you didn't is because you guys didn't realize that you were carrying with you some trauma. And you were just kind of lugging these emotional bags without really realizing that you were
Mhm.
lugging this stuff with you. Um, have you ever seen the movie Hope Floats?
Yes, yes, I have.
It's Sandra Bullock. I love her.
Mhm.
Awesome movie. But at the end, she has a quote, and it stayed with me ever since I heard it. She says something to the effect of, "Your childhood is what you spend the rest of your life trying to get over."
Mhm.
And I thought, I don't know who wrote that, but wow. You know, it's just too spot on, really. So once you realized that you had trauma and that, you needed to give it a look, everything kind of changed.
Yes, it did. Because it looked more like this. Like I would hold on to something that someone did that hurt me, and I would keep it in the background. And I told myself, "Oh, that's smart. Like, yeah, make a note of that. This will protect you." Um, and then I started to realize that it wasn't really protecting me as much as it was just creating distance between me and that person. Um, and that safe distance, it didn't just block the negative things that I thought this person had done to me or could do in the future, but it blocked the positives too. So
That
it,
is such a crucial observation.
yes, I think most people don't realize that.
Absolutely. You know, don't, I guess, until you stop and you really think about what you're keeping out, again, such a huge observation. Like, you made the decision that, oh, wait a minute, I'm blocking things that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's that courage that I continue to say I admired about you. I don't want to keep these things out. And you had started blocking things out and creating this distance because in the beginning, as a young person, you believe this is the only way to keep myself safe.
Yes, right. And on the surface, everything looked fine. It seemed logical to me. But underneath that, I wasn't fully in my relationships. I was guarded, I was holding back. Most importantly, I was reacting to things that weren't even happening in that moment. And I did not understand that. And I started asking myself, like, why do I feel stuck in like all of my relationships? It seems like they all got to this certain level, and then that's just where they all stopped. And I didn't really like the answer that I got because it was all me. I was not fully showing up for these relationships. Um, but my hands were full and I was holding on to all these things for all of these many years and they just kept building.
As always, my granddad offered his wisdom in a way that I didn't understand at the time, but he would tell me, you cannot get where you want to go if you don't look where you're headed. And as a
Mm,
kid, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, I'm just like, what? But again, there have certainly been times when I was so focused on the past that I could not see any way forward.
mm-hmm.
And once you realized that you were holding on to the past and past experiences, then you had to decide if you wanted to continue to do so or make a change.
Yeah. And like almost every moment that we have gone over so far, it sounded so easy at the time. Like, okay, I see
Yeah.
what's up here. Like, let me just change that. And so I was like, okay, let let's do it. All right, so I'm just gonna let go of some of the stuff I've been holding on. I think a good way to do that is to talk about it, maybe with some of the people that were involved, and just clear the air. Um, but that's not how I experienced those situations. Knowing that I had the baggage and acknowledging that, yeah, that's an important first step. But learning how to work through it, that's a totally different thing. I mean, you're taking everything that you have built over time for so many different reasons, and you're trying to just do it completely different.
Yeah. Having a realization is a first step, but the hardest part is deciding what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
process of having a realization and then taking a step to address it, sometimes that happens quickly, or there
Mm-hmm.
can be a pause, a gap in time while you just process what to do with that realization.
And I lived in that gap for a while, um, because my first attempts were not great. I don't know. Maybe we should have named this book like the things I tried to do and that didn't work the first time.
I love
Because
that.
that's
That's
kind of how
amazing.
I
I love
feel.
it.
Um, and I thought I was being honest. And some of these conversations that I tried to have, I thought that that's all I needed to be was honest. And but I was still only coming from my perspective, and at that time, my perspective was still the hurt that I was carrying. Um, so then I had to learn how to bring in empathy, and that was a huge shift for me. um Not only figuring out what it even was really the first step, and how to implement that into your life, your perspective and conversations, um but just how to show up in that energy.
Yes.
I was at first so just focused on my experience, and I really wasn't even aware. I was so oblivious again that there could be a totally different perspective. Like there are two sides to every story. And for some reason, I thought those would be my side. Like that I would just be two sides of my same story.
There
But
was one view of what happened, and this is how do you not see it?
yeah, like we shared this experience, so obviously we see it the same. No.
Your experience was the actual opposite of the struggles that I had.
Yeah.
I allowed my empathy to make me feel responsible for the feelings and even the happiness of others. I
Hmm.
felt obligated to prioritize their needs and their perspective above mine. And I rarely thought of my perspective as a priority at all. My empathy was just overpowering.
Yeah, and I was on the complete opposite side of that. I didn't have enough empathy, and that caused tons of different issues for me. And, as we talk about this today and we can see the extreme opposites and how those played out, I think we've both realized that it's about balance. It's about
Absolutely. Yes.
finding that balance, not just in empathy and perspective, but just in your life in general. And so the way I started thinking about it was actually kind of funny. So, um, a few years ago for Christmas, I asked for a new suitcase. Apparently, I was not clear on that ask because what I got was a full set of luggage. And, it was a very nice gift, but not what I meant. So I really just wanted this like a really cool carry-on
Hmm.
so that, when I did take trips, they're typically shorter trips, 3 to 5 days. I had this really cool carry-on, right? Um,
Yes.
but now I had this whole new set. And because it was a gift, it was bought in advance, probably at the time I requested it and
Mhm.
held for the next major holiday. So I could not return it. Um, and so the next holiday, I clarified my request and I finally got what I wanted. So it was this really cute teal carry-on. It had a matching, I still use it. It has a matching cosmetic case, a
Oh
place for my
yeah.
laptop. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Um, but because I had this whole set, I didn't feel like just wanted to get rid of one piece. So I kept it all. And I literally now have a closet full of suitcases, which is very ironic because I know that at some point this is going to be too much. Like I'm just going to have to figure this out. But for now, I just have them in my closet. Someday I will decide that I need to either keep it all, get rid of it all, or decide what piece I want to keep and what piece I want to get rid of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's exactly how this felt like for me. It wasn't about dropping everything all at once. It was about unpacking it
Hmm.
and taking one piece at a time out of this closet, looking at it, trying to understand it, and then decided what I actually wanted to do with it. Some of it I just didn't need anymore. I just looked at it like, okay, I can literally just get rid of that.
Hmm.
And some of it I had to look at differently.
Yeah. Can you share any examples of maybe behaviors or habits that you decided to just lay down or to sort of tweak a little bit?
Yeah. What I learned is that when you store something away with that mindset that I had that this is going to protect me in the future, you're not packing it away nicely. You're not doing it like a wedding dress where you get it preserved and it's just beautifully packed. And so when you take it back out to put it on, it just is, such a wonderful moment. It's not like you actually literally throw in wet, dirty, nasty stuff into into a storage area and you take it out years later and it smells and it's disgusting and you don't want to go through it. Um, but what I learned is that when you do store stuff away like that without love, you just throw it in there
Hmm.
with a lot of negative feelings. When you take it out, all of those feelings are going to come right back.
Or they're
And
worse.
oh yes, they have
They're more
gotten
stinky.
moldy and
Yes.
disgusting. But what I learned through that process is that I couldn't just expect grace from the other people involved in some of these situations because you can't just take them this old, nasty, smelly crap that you've held on to for so many years and be like, hey, I want to deal with this now. And then be like, oh, yeah, that I've been sitting here waiting for you to decide. I am so excited to deal with this crap that you just dropped in my lap. Like, it doesn't work that way. You can't just expect the other person to be ready and willing just because you are now. And just because I'm changing how I show up in this relationships, the the other person has to relearn that.
Mhm.
And they have possibly trauma or at least baggage from these interactions as well. And they're going to need time to trust that
Mhm.
you are going to handle this differently and then B, decide if they want to go on this new journey with you. They don't have to. So just expecting them to be ready for these conversations, that was the first big aha moment. So it wasn't about just dropping my baggage. It was literally learning how to unpack it with awareness, with empathy, and with patience. Those were all new to me.
I think that first, recognizing the baggage that you were carrying was definitely a more complicated undertaking than you expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you realized that the baggage was affecting the most important relationships in your life, then you had to decide what to do about this baggage. And you chose to do the hard work of facing the trauma head on. I'm proud of you. You worked to embrace your trauma, to grow from that understanding. And that is extremely complicated, messy, painful. It is not a pretty undertaking, and it takes a tremendous amount of courage. And I love you for it.
Oh, thank you. It was as hard as it sounds. It really was. It was definitely the dirty work of this emotional journey. But when I was willing to do it, it didn't just change what I carried, it did change how I show up in the relationships I have. And that's priceless and it's worth it. Thanks for joining us here at Connection Oasis, where we discuss real life lessons about relationships and boundaries.
And becoming who you actually are without the fluff.